Hey everybody, this is Rashad Gaines, Chair of the Black Caucus of the Young Democrats of America. Today is Sunday, February the 15th, third Sunday of the year 2015, in the month of February, where we celebrate Black history and all of the accomplishments and contributions that descendants of the African diaspora have added to this great and powerful country. Joining me tonight is my good friend, my big sister, Monica Talmadge, former DNC woman of the Young Democrats of America. Monica, how are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you, Rashad?
I'm blessed, no complaints. Oh, so Mont, tonight I want to have the conversation using the hashtag ordinary people. So if you're listening or viewing via social media, you can tweet, Facebook, or add us on Google Plus. And so that was crazy. All right. But you can join the conversation using the hashtag ordinary people via Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Google Plus. And we're just going to go ahead and get the conversation started tonight. So there are a lot of people who have been born and who have died.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of black people who have been born and who have died. And some have made significant contributions to their local communities, their states, their regions, our nation, our world, our rich history as a people. And people have never heard of them, or they've been so severely underrated and in history, and it's already unfair to our particular demographic because the history books don't highlight our contributions as a whole. I remember taking AP U.S. history in high school, and the book was the American Pageant. I want to say it was like the 13th or the 14th edition, but I remember specifically there were like 6 pages on Black history. 4.5 of those were on Martin Luther King alone. Most of it was pictures, wasn't a lot of text. And then you had, one very small paragraph on Malcolm X, one very small paragraph on Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, just the basics, kind of like the candy of civil rights, but nothing going into any great detail about the contributions and the lives of these people and what pushed them and propelled them into the positions that they were in, because no one just wakes up. Marquise, thank you for joining us. No one just wakes up and decide that they're going to change the world by themselves. There was a mentor, there was a parent, there was
Absolutely.
some form of inspiration that encouraged these folks to become the powerhouses that they are. So before I tell you who my secret political crush is, I'm going to let Monica tell you who hers is.
Well, I think what you're saying has a great deal of truth to it and has a tremendous amount of validity to it. The old African proverb that I'm probably going to mangle right now comes to mind of when until the lion gets a historian, the hunter is the point of view is always going to be from the hunter. And we have got to do a better job going forward of making sure that our history is known and understood, not only understood by the future generations, but is embraced and is appreciated by those of us who are living it today and who are living it now. My historical. I went to North Carolina A&T State University in Greensboro, North Carolina. And in order to get past your freshman year of college, you had to participate in some kind of protest and civil disobedience in order to bring about change was your requirement in order to get to your sophomore year of college. So I think the ordinary people that don't get a lot of recognition outside of this good old Southern South that we live in, is probably the Greensboro Four. I don't know that a lot of people know about the Greensboro Four. They were 4 college freshmen. They, the year before, they were 18, 17, 18, maybe 19 years old, that on February the 1st, 1960, went into the F.W. Woolworths in downtown Greensboro, North Carolina, and began sit-in movement to desegregate lunch counters all across the South. So I learned all about them, of course, being in Sunday school class when I moved to North Carolina. But to be on that campus and to walk that turf that those four incredible young men, and I believe 3 of the 4 of them are still alive, to walk that turf and to live the life of a college freshman just like they were, that's an overwhelming mantle. But we have to continue to teach our young people that it's not enough to just read history, that you have to endeavor to make history. And it's not even always about getting your name in a history book or being recognized for doing something incredible. Sometimes it's just being a part of a movement. I mean, if you think about it, if you've seen the movie Selma, clearly Dr. King was not the only person walking across the Edmund Pettus Bridge on Bloody Sunday. He was not the only one. There were a lot of necessarily no-faced individuals that were walking behind him that will never be in a history book, but their contribution to that day was just innumerable. There's no way to measure how incredible that is. So I think it's super important. I think it's super important to remember those ordinary people, for the simple fact that it's the ordinary folks that encompass the entire organization, not just the leadership.
Absolutely. Marquise, how you doing tonight, bro?
All is well. What's going on with you?
I'm well. Everyone,
Can you hear me?
Marquise. Yeah, we hear you. Marquise Averett is the Midwest.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
All is well, man. I'm in school taking classes, and so Sundays is the day where all of our assignments are due. So I'm just trying to rush some of this stuff through and get a decent grade. But all is well. I'm excited to be able to get on the phone and see what we can do to continue to move not only our community but this nation forward.
Absolutely. So, who would you say is one of the most underrated figures in Black history?
In Black history, underrated. I think Malcolm is one of the most underrated to me, and I know that we've arrived at this place where we think that that Dr. King had the only answer. But when I look back at history, I think that I did the thinking, what if we would have followed Malcolm instead of Martin? Malcolm preached about the need to invest our own dollar back into our own community, and Martin integrated us. So I think Malcolm is one of the underrated Black figures that I think about. I think we should have followed Malcolm instead of Martin, but that's just my opinion. Don't nobody hold that against me.
I'm gonna say this because Malcolm X, Malcolm Little is probably if I had to say who my political hero was, it would probably be him, but not for the same reasons that other people look at it. I'm a church kid, grew up in the Church of God in Christ, so Pentecostal holiness. So fundamentally, right off the bat, he and I were on a different wavelength. I believe in Jesus. He followed the teachings of Elijah Muhammad. But there was something that was very key that I saw with Malcolm that I try to portray, and it's really hard in 2015 to do this. But Malcolm's lifestyle was very pure. Outside of his politics, his lifestyle was pure. There were no No one said that they had outside children by him. No one, no prostitutes were found that were connected to him. He took care of his family. There were no issues there. There were some qualities um, as a black man who did not have um, a father in his house. There are some qualities in this man that I admire, that I appreciate. And as a leader, the ability to apologize and admit when you're wrong is
Right.
priceless. It's priceless. This man spent his life preaching, teaching, doing something completely different. He went to, he did his pilgrimage. He went to Mecca, and he saw that there were Muslims who practiced and worshiped and believed in many of the things that he did, as far as the religious side of it was. And he then turned around and dedicated his life to righting the wrongs that he had done before. And it ultimately cost him his life.
Mm-hmm.
But he was willing to spend the last 2 to 3 years of his life undoing the damage that he had done, changing his ways, being more apologetic, being more sympathetic, being more empathetic with people, and still was a great husband to his wife, and still was a great father to his children, and a great leader in his community. And so the leadership side of me absolutely adores the memory of Malcolm X. When I was the president of the Black Student Union at the University of South Carolina when I was an undergrad, on our calendar, it was probably only on our calendar the year I was the president, but it was our endeavor to have a vigil on February 21st, which this year will be the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Malcolm X. So this Saturday, people just need to be mindful of that. Like we're in the mix of a lot of 50th anniversaries this particular year. The Voting Rights Act, the Edward Pettus Bridge, Bloody Sunday. There's a lot of things that went on in 1965 that we're celebrating and bringing back to the forefront. And I do hope that people will sincerely recollect on the great memory of this man who challenged every piece of the status quo. But even though his leading, like his being led, had some flaws, in the organization that he was attached to, it doesn't change the fact that he wanted black people to love themselves, love their neighbors, and reinvest in their own community. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, whether you're a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew, atheist, Hindu, Buddhist, whatever religion. I don't think there's anything wrong with you wanting to see your people not suffering. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Right.
So, Malcolm, in my opinion, was a great man. And nothing, not taking anything against Dr. King. I wouldn't dare try to desecrate the memory of him. But I think it's very interesting how we in the black community choose who was allowed to do what. Martin Luther King was a very flawed man, but we give him a pass. So if we give him a pass, we have to give every pastor who's ever cheated on their wife a pass. Because Martin Luther King did the same thing.
Black community is that we don't have to desecrate one in order to uplift the other, and we do that a lot. We do that a lot with each other. So each man had his place in the pantheon of African American history, and each man had his role to play in African American history. I agree with you 100% that it takes, not only does it take a strong leader, but it takes a real adult. I don't want to say just a man or a woman, but it takes a real adult to say that what I've been espousing before has not been correct, and that I need to walk this back, and I need to, I need to take a different ilk, and I need to take a different path. I was just watching the movie Malcolm X not too long ago on television, and that struck me as he did realize that something was amiss and that something was wrong. But again, every human being, Obama, as great as people perceive him to be and think he's just, the second coming, which we know that he's not. He is a politician. He is a man. He has flaws and foibles like everyone else. These people are flawed. That's what makes them great leaders, is that they're able to remove themselves forward with flaws and all. Like, I accept my flaws. I accept the things I cannot change about myself, and I'm willing to work to put the work in to overcome those particular flaws. Another group of people that I think fit that bill. Do you remember the book and the movie The Help?
Yes.
Every nameless, faceless woman of color that had to come in the back door, that couldn't use the bathroom in the house that she worked in, that had to raise children that were not hers, that had to cook food she could not eat, who cleaned rooms she would never sleep or sit in. Those women truly are are unsung, ordinary heroes of the civil rights movement, because women had to not only deal with the impact of their husbands being brutalized, but many times they were mentally and physically brutalized themselves. So I don't think we can have a full and complete conversation about the effects of ordinary people until you talk about those people who they did what they had to do because they were surviving, but they were subjugated at the same time.
I don't disagree with you. But one thing that I always find interesting is the flip-flopping dynamics within the black community. There are literally people. Now, of course, those of us who've ever picked up a book and read a book in its entirety know that Martin Luther King did not do anything alone. Every part is very essential, from the person who drove the bus, from the person who typed the flyer, from the person who snuck in their job and made copies to pass out, to the ushers at the church meetings, because everything was held in the church, or the lady who cooked and fed the civil rights workers and the leaders, to the gentleman who opened up his home so that they would have a place to sleep, to the kids who gave up their beds and slept on the floor. Every person played a part. No one person was more important, and that was the essence and the strongest message that the civil rights history movement can teach us. Every part makes the whole stronger and larger and greater. A few years ago, I was invited to speak at an event, and my Black history knowledge was challenged for the first time in my entire life. Someone asked me on stage in front of about 400 people if I knew who Bayard Rustin was, and I had no idea. I had no clue. Probably something I should have known going into that event, especially concerning the audience I was dealing with, the audience that I would have that day. But Bayard Rustin was one of the civil rights. He was a mentor to Martin Luther King. He was the chief organizer of the March on Washington, and he just happened to be gay. And so he was pushed out of the inner circle of the civil rights leadership. Congressman John Lewis has spoken on many documentaries concerning this man, giving you vivid details of how his character was assassinated and he was pushed away. And Martin Luther King, in turn, had to push himself away from him because the other leaders of the movement were going to spread lies and rumors that he and Martin were, in a homosexual relationship, which wasn't true. And so this man who mentored our leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., this man who organized and put together the March on Washington, who was a pivotal part of the civil rights movement's leadership, was pushed aside because he was gay. And so I think, they're always contradictory. There's always contradiction within our community, but I think it's really, uh, I think it's sad. It's almost insane the way we do things, because we do the exact same thing that mainstream America has done to our community. We turn around and we do it within our own community, whether it's because of a person is gay, whether it's because of a person being biracial, or the light skin, dark skin colorism complex, having a nice house in the suburbs versus living in inner city and possibly the ghetto or the hood. I think it's really interesting how we turn around and those polarizing moments or those polarizing issues, we turn around and perpetuate those things within our own community.
We absolutely do. We absolutely do. And I mean, to me, it just kind of shows that no one is immune to it, and it isn't something that has changed. It's something that we've been dealing with as a community for quite some time. It's not something that we're not new to it. It's like black folk been tearing each other down for many, many years. So this ain't nothing new. This ain't nothing new that we have to get used to.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that it ends at some point. I'm praying that people can start seeing people for who and what they are, or for who they are and what they are, and get past it and kind of listen to the content of what it is that they're talking about.
Absolutely. Marquise, you still with us? No. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Did you want to comment on that?
Oh no, I'm just listening to what y'all saying.
Okay. So another key figure that I don't think people really give credit. We give her a lot of credit as a singer, but I don't think we ever really highlight the actual prowess of Mahalia Jackson and her role in the civil rights movement. It's like, oh, she was one of the first major black gospel singers. She was more than a singer, and I think that's us kind of relegating, not really wanting to dig into a person, just saying, oh, she was a singer. She was more than that, and actually most artists are really smart and really powerful within their own right. So we can't just say, oh, they're a singer, oh, they're a dancer, or oh, they draw or paint. These people have brains as well, and she was actually a very integral part of the civil rights movement, more than just singing before Dr. King gave speeches. She had a brain. She gave speeches as well. She mentored folks. She encouraged folks. She was more than just a singer, and I think we would be remiss with not highlighting her on tonight as well.
Absolutely. And let's remember that the genre of gospel music really didn't reach its pinnacle until after Sister Mahalia, or Mother Mahalia, you probably could call her. It didn't reach its zenith until Mother Mahalia started getting out there and putting, recording records, putting those records out there. I don't think you would have had a Reverend Dr. C. Franklin, his children, which gave birth to Aretha Franklin. You wouldn't have had the Walter Hawkins family. You wouldn't have had, which of course delineated down to all of the gospel music artists that you have now. You wouldn't have. None of these folks would have had the impact, the social impact that they've had if it wasn't for Mahalia Jackson. That is absolutely for sure. She was she was more than just a big voice.
One thing I'll say, I remember, and I know this is kind of off subject a little bit, but I remember the Dixie Chicks back in 2002, 2003, after the whole war in Iraq started and the war on terrorism and the search for weapons of mass destruction and all of that stuff. The Dixie Chicks put out an album called "Shut Up and Sing" because they actually spoke out against President Bush and his antics with the war. And people kept telling them to shut up and sing, shut up and sing. And their career was almost ruined and downplayed, uh, practically wiped out of country music, the platform of country music, because they challenged the president. And everyone felt like, oh, they're artists, they shouldn't, say anything. But Mahalia Jackson kind of set the standard for African American artists to actually have a voice and to be civically engaged. She set that standard.
True, absolutely true. And I think when you start talking about the genre of country music, the image they want to present to the world is that they're all American and that they support the troops and they support an all American existence. Well, what is an all American existence? All American existence is being able to speak out to something that you do not agree with. And I supported the Dixie Chicks. I went out and bought. I think I have every album that they, or every CD that they ever made. All the time listen to their music, but it's the fact that I was going to support them for speaking the words that generationally we needed to hear. We needed to say. I think the Dixie Chicks are around the same age I am, if not a little bit older, and they were it was folks my age that were going to fight this war. So it needed to be said. It needed to be put out there. Whereas in the black community, we have our own. I think we tend to have our own, for lack of a term, it's the only thing that's coming to my mind right now. We have our own bag of shit when it comes to how we deal with certain social elements that we want to recognize and that we don't. Perfect case in point, we don't really, homosexuality is what it is. It's real. And we have friends, we have family, we have friends in and out of our churches, we have friends in and out of our communities who are gay and who are openly gay, but we don't want to talk about that. Which lends to another individual that I sort of wanted to bring up, who really kind of spoke to that, which is Zora Neale Hurston. Zora Neale Hurston was absolutely one of the foremost authorities on African American literature. She came along during the Harlem Renaissance, absolutely, for sure. But I've read a number of different essays and I've read a number of different articles that said Zora Neale Hurston was an open lesbian. We don't talk about that in the black community. We don't talk about that because, like you said, it goes back to the church, and we vilify homosexuality. Now, of course, we're not going to get on that particular topic tonight, on the rightness, the wrongness, the in-betweenness, whatever. But let's be really, really clear. A lot of people, like the gentleman that you were talking about, Rashad, a lot of people were shut out of the movement because of their open sexuality. That is a lot that black people are going to have to carry until they choose to put it down. Because our gay cousins are not going anywhere. Our gay brothers and sisters are not going anywhere. Our aunt who has been living with her quote unquote roommate for the last 31 years isn't going anywhere. Our uncle, who is a quote unquote confirmed bachelor, isn't going anywhere. They aren't going anywhere. They're still a part of our lives. And I have to find some more of those essays that Zora Neale Hurston wrote about her American experience and the experience of being openly gay, and the fact that she had to leave New York and go to Florida. That's the big reason why she was in Florida, and it was one of the bigger, or she had to leave Florida, go to New York. And their eyes were watching God was something that was constantly said to her, because it was understood that she was a little bit different from the people that were in her peer group. And she got to Harlem during the Harlem Renaissance, and she sort of found her voice, and she found her place, and she found men and women who were thinking freely and who were living free lives and doing the things that they enjoyed doing, and being a part of that particular bohemian lifestyle. So I definitely think if we're gonna talk about ordinary people that made big changes and made big strides, we have to talk about people like Zora Neale Hurston, who lived her life no matter what.
Absolutely. And somebody else we have to talk about.